Hello, it is M.E.C, and you're listening to the Well of Being podcast. Today we're talking about manifesting. Manifesting being the act of kind of claiming and saying out loud, declaring, if you will, the things that you want in life, the things that you want in general, and then having the process of doing that help you achieve what you want. Sounds kind of weird. I think it's been pretty popular over the past year or so to say, like, oh, I'm manifesting. And I think a lot of people say it as a joke because, like, we low-key think it's preposterous to kind of gas ourselves up to the point where we're claiming what we want and, like, saying what we want, and actually believing that it will happen. And I remember I used to think that that was a load of hogwash. Hogwash meaning nonsense. And like the fact that you could create a desired outcome just from thinking about it and saying it or like claiming it before it occurs. I was like, no way. That's not remotely true. I actually stopped believing that was silly when I was in high school because I had an assignment that I had to do where I had to make a vision board, and it said in 5 years. And this is my junior year of high school. And they asked us to make a vision board. And I was like, oh God, not these again. Because my mom makes a lot of vision boards and I would consider her a very successful person, but I always thought it was kind of silly. I just thought it felt silly to do. But because I had to do it for assignment, you can bet I was going to do it. So I went and I printed out a bunch of pictures from Pinterest of stuff that I wanted. And I remember at that time, I was like, oh, I want a cute apartment and I want to start a blog. And I also I put a picture of like a web page, like an old fashioned blog at the time, like a Blogspot or something. And then I put a picture of the university I wanted to go to for college. I put I wanted to start my own business, so I put that on there. And I also put like pictures of cute apartments, did that. And I also wrote down like adjectives about myself that I wanted to do. And I think it was like charismatic, ambitious, like driven. I think one of them was relating to like being playful, like maintaining kind of a sense of youth as they will. And I made it for the assignment and I kind of forgot about it. It was like hanging out in my room, and a couple years went by, like 2 years. And then I got into the school that was on the poster, and I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. And, I really have wanted to go to the school for a long time, and so that's nice. That's just nice. A couple more years went by. I think it was 4 years from when I had originally made it. And I went back and looked at it, and at the time I had started up my blog. It was really small at the time, and then I also had a really cute apartment that I was living in, and I was like, oh, that's kind of nice. And then when I graduated from college, which was roughly 5 years from when I made the original poster, I had done every single thing that was on there. Every single thing. There's not a single thing on that poster, and I wish I could show it to you, but it's actually back at my childhood home, so I don't have it. But it was literally everything that I had on that poster was done. Like, I had accomplished every single thing, and I thought that was so weird. I was like, that's so strange, but that's so cool. And so I remember I also wrote a little list of things that I wanted to get better at over the next, couple of years. I want to start a blog on there. I also put that I wanted to sing more, and I wanted to perform more, and I wanted to get into medical school, and I wanted to start exercising more. And I did all of those things, became a fitness instructor, started making content semi-professionally, started performing music more frequently. It was actually really interesting. So I really do believe that this works. I do. And I really believe in the strength of a good vision board and the concept of seeing the stuff that you want frequently and then having it come true. I think it's not silly. That brings me to point number 1, which is admitting to yourself what you want is powerful. I think that is the whole key to this. I'm not saying that there's some sort of mystic power that when you talk about the things that you want, then it just shows up and then you suddenly become successful and do the things that you want. I don't think it's like that. I think it is more of that when you tell yourself very explicitly what you want in life, it changes the way that you behave so that you can become and act more in accordance with someone who would accomplish that type of goal. And then you become someone who accomplishes that type of goal. For me, it was like, oh, I want to start a blog. So I started writing down things that I want to talk about in tons of different notebooks and journals and the Notes app on an iPhone. I started writing down the things I wanted to talk about. And I would start I would sit there and think about how I would talk to people and what I would elaborate on and the things that would make me different. And so I just would have all these plans that I was making in my phone. And that's not something I would have done if I didn't think to myself, hey, this is what I want. I want to start a blog. And then I started being well, I could do this. Now that I have a plan, I can actually do this. And so I started taking pictures and practicing the writing and the speaking and getting a camera and getting in front of it and getting comfortable doing that. And I don't know, here I am, I guess, is what I'm saying. But I wouldn't have done that unless I knew what I wanted. And by writing it out, I explicitly started to change the way I behaved. And I think it's powerful because of that. It shows that we have the capacity to adapt to what we want and to change ourselves in ways that is, a positive thing. And I also think it's really interesting because we do alter the way that we behave based on seeing that kind of thing. So if I tell myself I'm stupid all the time, which is a nasty habit that I gained at some point during my adolescence, and at some point I started to doubt that I was intelligent. I would assume that I didn't know things compared to other people. And it actually really preyed heavily upon my ability to think of myself as an intelligent person for a while. And I think that that's partially related to the fact that I'm telling myself that I'm stupid. At a certain point, you start to believe it because it becomes super easy. It rolls off the tongue, right? So it can go either way. I think we call the positive version of this manifesting, but really the way that you talk to yourself matters. And I think also when you put something out into the world, so to speak, if I say something, it makes it more real, more concrete. You start to think, oh, I actually made that goal. I said it, and so therefore that's an official goal that I made. And so then I think it becomes more real to you. You start to treat it as if it is a goal that you have set rather than something that you're thinking about in your head because you've made it more concrete to yourself. You had admitted this is what I want. And if you tell someone else, it becomes even more strong, in my opinion, because you're holding yourself accountable by telling someone else that this is a goal that you have. And I think that's the reason why a lot of us are afraid to tell other people of our goals, because by making it seem super real, we're like, oh man, if I don't accomplish that, I'm going to feel really silly. But I think that the concept of speaking your truth, saying what you want and admitting what you want and figuring out what you want is also very important, because I think a lot of times people they always ask kids, what do you want to do when you grow up? And they're like, I don't know. Or maybe they have an idea for a little bit and then they'll change with their mind and then change their mind. Kids are not afraid to do that. And while they're in a certain phase, a lot of the time they're all in. If they're I really want to be an archaeologist, I think that's the thing a lot of kids talk about. They get really into dinosaur stuff. They start doing research. They know tons of information about dinosaurs and archaeology and the ancient past and things like that. And they fully explore it because they've committed to it. They're I like this thing and I'm okay trying this out. And that doesn't mean that you have to eventually go into that field. I mean, there's many kids who are I want to be a dinosaur. And I'm how did that work out for you? Probably not well. But in the process of them going for their goal with such fervor and willingness to just share what they're interested in and go for it 100%, kids don't realize that that's not something adults do. And I think adults don't do it because they're scared that if they don't accomplish the thing or if they change their mind, that people will think of themselves as something negative. And I think it's interesting because kids just go for it. Kids just go for it and they'll tell you what they want and they'll talk all about the topics that they're interested in and they're not embarrassed about it. But then when we are like, well, I'm not there yet, but I want to be this, it feels strange and it feels almost embarrassing or cringy. And that leads me to point number 2 for today, which is believing in ourselves so openly feels vulnerable and somewhat cringy. And I will explain what that means. A lot of it is what I was mentioning before, where it says, what if I said that I'll do it and I actually can't? I can't do it. And we're so afraid of saying that we're going to do something and then not doing it. And then people thinking, oh, she can't do that to begin with, or people are going to doubt me. Or the act of saying it makes it feel too real. And if I don't accomplish it, then I'll feel bad about myself. But I think what you have to think about is if you don't really commit to the stuff that you're interested in doing, or if you don't allow yourself the luxury of really going in on the things that you're interested in, or the things like, oh, I was always kind of interested in this, but I never really pursued it. There's always so many what ifs afterwards. And I feel like those feel worse. It feels worse to be like, well, I wish I would have explored this thing, but I didn't because I was too afraid, or I was too hesitant of looking stupid, or it just seemed out of reach or really random. And I thought people would think it was strange of me. I think we look back on those things and be like, I wish I would have done it anyway. And if there's anything in life I don't want to say frequently, it's that I wish I would have done something. I think it's great to reflect and be like, oh, that was an opportunity I missed and things like that, and like have that guide you forward. But man, I don't like FOMO. I don't like the concept of not acknowledging the things that I want and then not going for it. I just think, why not? Why not me? People are like, oh, why me? Why not you? And I think part of it goes with this, I hate uncertainty. I think it's disgusting. The concept of not knowing what's going to happen. I love planning and knowing exactly what's going to happen. And so when we are manifesting, when you are claiming something that's not yet true, it's not yet come true, it's kind of uncertain. We don't know when it will happen, number 1. We don't know if it will happen, number 2. And therefore, we kind of act as if it will never be, because that is the more certain thing. It is not currently happening, and so it is more likely that it will not happen than it will. That's kind of the safety way of planning about that kind of thing. And at the end of the day, you don't know if it will happen, and you don't know when it will happen. But does that mean that you shouldn't try? No. I think that manifesting is a really cool way of challenging yourself to be a little bit more bold in a way that you can do by yourself. It's easier to behave as if it will never happen at all. And that's just like not my favorite way of living, because the number one thing I don't want to say at the end of my life is, oh, I wish I would have done, and then list off all these goals that I actually had that I didn't take seriously because I didn't think I could do them, or I was unsure about it. I hate the concept of thinking that way. But it's easy to do. I think our concern about the way that we look from another person's perspective plays a lot into that. I mean, we would love to say that we are not affected by the opinions of other people, but at the end of the day, that's not true. And I think we idolize people who have gone for their dreams and who have obtained the things that they wanted, even though it was like super far-fetched. And we love a good article regarding, oh, look at this individual who started up this business from nothing and, had to make all these sacrifices, but like made it. We love that kind of story. But when the person has not yet made it, when the person is out here sharing their mixtape and we're like, nah, please keep that away from me. And they're starting their social media account and you're like, oh my goodness, isn't that so embarrassing? Look at who's posting these pictures as if they're an influencer. Or, someone is talking about their startup and you roll their eyes. All of those things are people going after their dream wholeheartedly and wanting to share it with you. And we have a really nasty habit of pushing those people down because they're not successful yet. But when they're successful, we're so into it. And we're like, why couldn't I do that? And that's the problem. That's where the vulnerability comes from. We're very okay with people who've already made it, where it's certain that they have made it. They have been successful. But when they're in the weeds and they're trying to figure out and manifest and navigate through that stuff, we're not interested in them. In fact, we consider it cringy. Like if you look at somebody who goes and does affirmations and looks at themselves in the mirror and says, I am worthy, I'm so cool. You're like, ick, right? And I personally definitely get some feelings of disgust or, cringe or shuddering from the concept of looking at myself in the mirror and telling myself I'm really beautiful, or like I literally just cringe when I try to say that. And I think that that's really silly, because at the end of the day, I'm just talking to myself, and I should feel comfortable talking to myself. More specifically, I should feel comfortable saying nice things about myself. And I find that difficult. And I think a lot of people find it difficult. And the fact that we've made it cringy to believe in ourselves in that way is really a shame. And so it's something I'm trying to fight back against in the process of really getting into manifesting. Which leads me to my third point, which is, how do you manifest in the first place? And how do I do it without cringing or rolling my eyes so hard they get stuck in the back of my head? This is how I think of it. If you're a visual person, go make a vision board. What is a vision board? A vision board is basically an array of pictures, words, things and inspiration from various places that represent the things that you want in the future. People can make them for 10 years out. You can make them for 5 years. You can make them for your whole life if you really want. Some people make them for every year, so they know what they want to do with that year. I've mentioned, I've done the one for 5 years and it worked pretty well. It also is a really cool way of kind of being vulnerable with someone else. So if you want to make vision boards together and you take it really seriously and you both actually put stuff that you want to accomplish on the vision board, you really get to know somebody really well from that. So I think it's a really cool activity to do with a friend that you trust or a partner. I think that's an inherently vulnerable thing to do, because you're listing out some of your core things that you want to achieve with your lifetime, with your limited span of being here. And there's various ways you can do it. I think traditionally people go and get a magazine and they get some scissors and they start cutting out things that they like or that they want, and they make a collage with it on the vision board. They can cut out words, you can cut out pictures of people, you can cut out concepts or people's houses or ththings like that. Some people make ones that are specific towards a career, while other things are more personal life, or it could be mixed. I tend to just mix it up because I'm a little messy. It is what it is. I personally tend to use Pinterest. So what I'll do is I'll go on Pinterest and I'm a big Pinterest gal. Love that. And I'll make Pinterest boards in different areas. And then if I want to make a physical vision board, then I will print out the pictures from my Pinterest and then put them on the board. That way everything's organized and I know where it is. And then you want to hang it somewhere that you can see pretty frequently. And the reason for this is because you're reminding yourself on a routine basis of the things that you want. And doing so and reminding yourself, this is, I'm waking up this morning, I'm getting dressed, whatever, I'm brushing my teeth. Oh, there's the job I want, or there's the promotion I want, or there's the lifestyle I want, or there's a pair of shoes that I really would aspire to have in my closet. It can be any array of things, and none of them are silly in my opinion, even though I know somebody probably cringed at the shoe thing. But you're reminding yourself of what you want, so that when you do see opportunities or you talk to people, you are making those opportunities more likely to happen so that you can get what you want. Another thing that is a big part of it, besides making a physical vision board, is changing the way that you talk to yourself, changing your language with how you speak about your future. Instead of saying, oh, if I become this, no. Oh, when I become this. We are making it more concrete. If implies it might happen, it might not. When implies it will happen, it's just a matter of time, and it depends on when it's going to happen. Similarly, you can say, oh, well, I might end up doing this, Or you can say, well, I will be doing this. Being more definitive with your language feels scary, and it feels like what is happening is that you don't want to lie to somebody, right? Or you don't want to lie to yourself. And so by using concrete language, I feel like you're more likely to go at something as if I have to do it. And therefore, like, you make your dream more likely to become reality. And I think it's super okay to change your dreams and to have them evolve and like grow as a person. And sometimes the way that you foresee a dream being is different than when you actually achieve it. But I think the whole point is to give yourself some sort of accountability and to treat yourself as if you're already going to be achieving that in the future. I think that that's super helpful with the way that you talk to people, talk to job recruiters, the way that you dress. It's affected by what you believe will happen. If I think I'm not going to see anyone important today, I'm more likely to dress down and wear, very casual clothing. If I know I'm going to see someone who's super important today, I'm going to dress up. And so, like, with that kind of attitude, if I expect something or I'm always ready for something to happen that's good to me, I might behave differently or speak differently about myself or believe differently about myself. And that's kind of how manifesting works. It's not a matter of like the whole magic thing, I said it and therefore it shall be. No, it's more of I'm saying something, I'm committing myself to this. And so I'm slowly going to change my behaviors and the way that I talk about myself to make this more likely that it's going to happen. And I think it works pretty well as long as you dedicate yourself to it. I already mentioned dressing the part, or at the very least carrying yourself a specific way. When someone's like, I'm going to be successful versus, yeah, I might succeed or not. There's a difference in the way that I perceive them with their body language, the way that they speak, the way they talk to other people, that kind of thing. I also think if you don't like talking to yourself or kind of having conversations with other people about your goals, that is so okay. But I do think that writing them down, if you were that kind of person, writing your goals down does make it concrete, and you still should hang it up because you want to see it frequently. My mom used to say, oh, keep your vision board within view of where you go to sleep. So that as you go to sleep, last thing you see, your vision board. As you wake up, first thing you see, your vision board. And it conditions you to think that is going to be my reality eventually. It's going to be something I achieve eventually. It becomes less of, oh, that's my goal over there, and more of, yeah, that's what I'm going to be. And like, I think goal implies like, oh, I still am unsure if I'll reach it, but like I want to reach it. And like when you treat it as if it's going to happen, it is inevitable. You treat it differently. And I think that's what makes it cool. The last thing that you want to do is acknowledging your progress. A lot of times we don't like to acknowledge the fact that we have done a lot of cool things because it feels weird, it feels uncomfortable. Frankly, we don't reflect on the things that we do positively a lot of the time. We reflect more on the things that we do badly. And so we might not even realize that we've made a ton of progress towards our goals or like the things that we have on our vision board or the things that we want to manifest until we've already gotten pretty close. And I think it's really encouraging to know that you're making progress towards your goal. So I would like take a step back and be like, oh man, I've come a long way. Especially when the goal is something super long term. For instance, for me with medical school, that's just something I can think of because I'm going through it right now. If I think, wow, I'm a second year medical student, I have, 2 more years of medical school and 3 more years of residency and then 1 or 2 more years of fellowship, and then I'm an attending physician. I'm a doctor by myself. My God, that just seems so long. When I said that, that sounds so long. But if I think about the fact that in high school, I wanted to do that. I went through 4 years of college and did my pre-medical stuff. I did 1 year of gap year and I worked on myself there. I've done 2 years of medical school and I've done really well. And I'm looking forward to the things that I'm going to be doing in the next couple years. And I think of all the stuff I'm doing now that I only dreamed of doing in high school. it helps you to put things in perspective and to keep going. Because frankly, if I didn't acknowledge the things that I did really well in the past, I think I would look at my future and be like, wow, I'm going to be here forever. I'm never going to reach that goal. That's going to be like 8 years from now. Oh my goodness. And that makes it discouraging. So I think it's really helpful to, even if it makes you feel uncomfortable, to get into the habit of acknowledging the amazing things that you've done and where you've come from. And I recognize that a lot of the conversation I've spoke of is career oriented, but there are goals that you can have, that you can manifest, that are not remotely related to capitalism or, your job or a vocation or things like that. Like, for instance, where I am right now with my mental health, where I am right now, I could only dream of being here back in 2020 when I first started going to therapy. The crap that I had to go through, that I made it through, that I'm no longer dealing with, the way that I speak to myself and the insight that I have towards my brain, the level of anxiety that I can now manage and deal with compared to the level that I could deal with before is dramatically different. My mood has improved tremendously, and I think about just like wanting to be happy or not wanting to feel numb, and I don't feel like that right now. These are all amazing things that I was like hoping to manifest for myself when I started this blog. That was really why. It was because I was like, I can foresee myself healing. Like, I know I'm in the process of it, but I will be healed one day. I will have healed significantly at some point, and I don't know when that will be, but I know I can do it. And now if I look back on the progress I've made, I'm like, wow, I actually really have done that. I really have manifested that by really surrounding myself with lots of content on mental health and telling myself that I'm going to heal and telling myself that healing is not linear. All of this is a very, very good example of how manifestation can work, because I've been working at this and I've been surrounding myself with positive influences and things I find inspiring, and I've made it to this point. And sometimes when I have hard days, I'm like, man, I just wish I could be happy and blah, blah, blah. But if I look back on where I was, I'm like, wow, I am much happier than I was. And I think that that's really important. The goal is to become happier. When I view it as like a binary, being like, ooh, if I'm on this side, I'm not happy. And if I'm on this side, then I'm suddenly happy. Then like there's small things throughout the day that could push me over the line to becoming not happy, right? Versus happy. And like, what does that mean? But if I think about my goal is to be happier, it doesn't have to be like this constant state of happy. No one's going to ever experience that. But at the end of the day, I want to be happier at the end of the year than I was last year. And I think that that's a really different way of viewing things. And so that's why I think manifesting is so freaking cool. You can apply it to anything from mental health to your job, to the way you want your house to look like, to your personal style, to, getting a green thumb and having a bunch of plants, which I definitely have done. There's a lot of plants around me right now. There's just so many things that you can manifest when you think about it. Well, that has been my little rant for the day, and I hope that you enjoyed this episode of The Wellbeing. Feel free to leave any feedback or things that you want me to cover, either in a review, or I have a link to our group chat for the community, and so feel free to go in there and talk about the things that you're interested in. I would love to interact with you there. Otherwise, I hope you're having a good day, and if it's not a good day, I hope tomorrow is somewhat happier. Thanks. Bye.